and welcome to Cloud Interview Questions, an initiative by Cloudworthy. So before we actually jump into any cloud player, another important concept to remember is the difference between your VMs and your containers, right? So both may sound similar, but these are two different categories. And with the rise of containers, we have more added advantages, right? We started building more microservices, right? And that actually revolutionized the entire app deployment and packages. Okay, so we will try to understand the difference between the virtual machines and the containers. So we may all now be comfortable with virtual machines, right? So it is basically yes, server. So we will launch a VM. During that time, we will pick an OS image, right? So it may be a Windows server or Linux server. So there would be one OS image, and on top of it, we will build our applications, right? So that is what a virtual machine does. So in a virtual machine, there is always a tight coupling or an one-to-one mapping between the operating system, whatever we are choosing, and the application that we are deploying. There is always a one-to-one mapping. This application would be hosted on this operating system, and this operating system will host that application. So there would be a one-to-one mapping or a tight coupling. But if you want to like loose couple it, right? If you want to like little bit relax it, right? So we can move to containers, where in containers we are not actually virtualizing anything, but we will take just one operating system and we will host multiple applications on top of it, right? So we will have one operating system, and that operating system will have its own kernel space where we can host multiple applications on that reserved kernel space. So that is what a container actually stands for, right? So here it is a one-to-one mapping between your OS and the application, but here we have multiple applications can share the same OS, right? And the size of the VM obviously becomes large because we carry this operating system along with it, right? So operating system and uh, and then your application library files and the application code, right? So the size will become very large. It becomes very difficult to port from one place to another, right? But in case of containers, generally it will use a very like minimal minimal Linux distribution, so the size would be generally very light. Actually, you can easily port it to a different place, to different environment, right? So that is another big advantage of using a containers. But the disadvantages, wherever we focus more on the usability, wherever we make it very easy for the users, the security will always take a hit, right? So the VMs are more secure because it is heavily isolated, right? The applications are isolated. Each of them have their corresponding operating systems, right? But in case of containers, right, since multiple applications can share the same OS, like one of the application, a malicious attacker can send an vulnerable image, and that same application, right, it will be residing next to the other normal applications, and they will be able to communicate and or compromise the OS and take control of all the applications, or it can take control of the other applications by communicating. So in general, containers are very less secure. So to make it more secure, nowadays we have a concept called scan and sign. So whenever we receive a container, we will be doing a vulnerability scanning, and as soon as the container is developed, some person have to sign it, actually sign it as in like this has been created by me, so with an ID, right? So only the scanned and signed images would be deployed in production. This is how we are making containers more secure. Right? And it is very important to know the difference between virtual machine and your containers. Okay, thank you.